Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome back to 365 Days of Love and Miracles with A Course in Miracles. My name is Arlene Geres, and I am so glad that you are here. Please remember to listen right until the very end, because we have a special treat for you. And if you enjoyed today's video, please click like and subscribe down below, because this helps others to find us on YouTube. Today's lesson is lesson number 152. The power of decision is my own. Do you feel like you have full power over all of your decisions, my friends? When we're living in the world of the ego, so much happens that we're not even aware of. We are programmed from our very first days into living the way that the world wants us to live. Advertising is such a powerful phenomenon that we are literally brainwashed into thinking that we need to live a certain way. We need to buy certain things. We need to act a certain way. I have neighbors here in Mexico who moved here from California 2 years ago because they have 2 young girls, and they did not want their girls growing up in the culture that they saw. When we're caught up in the ego, the power of decision is not our own. Let's read today about how to truly live where the power of decision is our own. No one can suffer loss unless it be his own decision. No one suffers pain except his choice elects this state for him. No one can grieve, nor fear, nor think him sick unless these are the outcomes that he wants. And no one dies without his own consent. Nothing occurs but represents your wish, and nothing is omitted that you choose. Here is your world, complete in all details. Here is its whole reality for you, and it is only here salvation is. Let's talk about it. My friends could have chosen to stay in California. My friends could have chosen to allow their young girls to be brainwashed by the culture in which they were living. No one can suffer loss unless it be his own decision. Any time that we're caught up in suffering or pain of any kind, let's stop and ask ourselves, what decision have I made that has caused this to happen in my life? Nothing occurs but represents your wish, and nothing is omitted you choose. This is an incredibly important lesson, my friends, when we understand that we get to choose how we want to live. Then we can start to put the pieces into place that have enabled us to live the life that we want. My husband and I saw this many years ago when we were still working. We put the plans into place to be able to live the life that we're living now. Some of those choices were sacrifices. Some of those choices were putting off what we wanted to do that day because we knew that we wanted to be able to live in Mexico for half our life in our golden years. That was a decision that we made many years ago, and we're incredibly grateful and feel very blessed to be able to live this life now. Nothing occurs but represents your wish, and nothing is omitted that you choose. When we understand this, we take responsibility for our lives. We stop living as if we are victims of all the things that go on with the world. We become agents of our own life, and that is very important. Let's just stop rolling with the punches, allowing life to happen to us. Let us first make the choice for God, and then allow God to direct our life. Let's keep reading. You may believe that this position is extreme and too inclusive to be true. Yet can truth have exceptions? If you have the gift of everything, can loss be real? Can pain be part of peace or grief of joy? Can fear and sickness enter in a mind where love and perfect holiness abide? Truth must be all-inclusive, if it be the truth at all. Accept no opposites and no exceptions, for to do so is to contradict the truth entirely. Let's talk about it. It really comes down to us making the choice for God. Can pain be part of peace or grief of joy? Can fear and sickness enter in a mind where love and perfect holiness abide? Once we make that choice for God, once we decide to leave the world of the ego behind, and to walk in God's love, perfect joy, and perfect peace, then we no longer have to worry about loss, pain, or of grief. Truth must be all-inclusive if it be the truth at all. Only truth is true. Truth does not contain pain, grief, sadness, sorrow, or sickness. When we've made the decision for God, we get to live in the world of peace, joy, and happiness. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Let's keep reading. Salvation is the recognition that the truth is true and nothing else is true. This you have heard before, but may not yet accept both parts of it. Without the first, the second has no meaning, but without the second, is the first no longer true? Truth cannot have an opposite. This cannot be too often said and thought about. For if what is not true is true as well as what is true, then part of truth is false, and truth has lost its meaning. Nothing but the truth is true, and what is false is false. I don't know how many different times we have to say it, my friends. Only truth is true. What is false is false. You cannot be a little bit true, and you cannot be a little bit false. The two worlds are completely separate. There is no meeting ground. What is true is true. Let's keep reading. This is the simplest of distinctions, yet the most obscure, but not because it is a difficult distinction to perceive. It is concealed behind a vast array of choices that do not appear to be entirely your own. And thus the truth appears to have some aspects that belie consistency, but do not seem to be but contradictions introduced by you. Let's talk about it. The ego seems to have some pieces of truth in them, but they are inconsistent. This is really important to recognize because sometimes we might waffle and we might think, well, I can tell this little lie, or I can have this little dishonesty, or I can keep a secret from my loved one, because a little bit of dishonesty never hurt anyone. It is telling us here that we have what we think are this vast array of choices in the ego, and yet we have only one. Any time that we think that there are inconsistencies in God's world, this is because we are allowing the thoughts of the ego to cloud our vision of God's love. Let's keep on reading. As God created you, you must remain unchangeable with transitory states by definition false, and that includes all shifts in feeling, alterations in conditions of the body and the mind, in all awareness and in all response. This is the all-inclusiveness which sets the truth apart from falsehood and the false kept separate from the truth as what it is. Let's talk about it. God created us as His perfect, beloved child right at the beginning of time. This has never changed. As God created you, you must remain unchangeable, and transitory states are false. What we have believed in the world of the ego, all of the lies, all of the stories that we heard as children, such as you're bad, you're lazy, you need to work harder, stop being such a slob. I had the messiest bedroom in the whole world as a child. These were the messages that I heard as a child. And so I took these lies onto myself. But these transitory states are, by definition, false. That's a huge relief, my friends. I don't want to believe any of those lies about myself. I want to accept the truth that I am God's beautiful, beloved child. Let's keep on reading. Is it not strange that you believe to think you made the world you see is arrogance? God made it not. Of this you can be sure. What can He know of the ephemeral, the sinful, and the guilty, the afraid, the suffering and lonely, and the mind that lives within a body that must die? You but accuse Him of insanity to think He made a world where such things seem to have reality. He is not mad, yet only madness makes a world like this. What do we do, friends, when things seem to go wrong? We tend to blame God. We tend to think that God must be a terrible entity to allow children to die, to allow people to suffer, to allow things like addiction or homelessness, terrible poverty, a worldwide pandemic. The list goes on and on of all of the things that people suffer here on earth, and we blame God. All of these things are as a result of the ego. We would not have world poverty if those of us who have money shared. There would be no children suffering if all of us got involved in the lives of children and offered support to struggling parents. God wants us to do His work here on earth. There are so many things that we can do to alleviate the suffering of the world. That is our responsibility here on earth. Let's stop blaming God. Let's keep reading. To think that God made chaos contradicts His will, invented opposites to truth, and suffers death to triumph over life. All this is arrogance. Humility would see at once these things are not of Him. And can you see what God created not? To think you can is merely to believe you can perceive what God willed not to be. And what could be more arrogant than this? Before I had my nervous breakdown over 30 years ago, I would not have thought that all of the lies that I believed about God was arrogance. And yet, here we have it, my friends. To believe that God made chaos is arrogance. To think that God created suffering is arrogance. None of that is true. The ego has made these lies up. Remember, the ego does not want us to surrender to God. The ego does not want us to come home to perfect joy, peace, and happiness, because when we do that, we will not need the ego anymore. The ego speaks first, and the ego speaks loudest. Always remember that, my friends. We are trying to change our brains. We are trying to change those automatic negative thought patterns that keep us sick and keep us stuck. And we are trying to automatically learn how to think with God's mind. Let's keep reading. Let us today be truly humble and accept what we have made as what it is. The power of decision is our own. Decide but to accept your rightful place as co-creator of the universe, and all you think you made will disappear. What rises to awareness then will be all that there ever was, eternally as it is now, and it will take the place of self-deceptions made but to usurp the altar to the Father and the Son. Wow, what a glorious picture. Being humble means accepting the truth of who we are as God's beautiful, beloved children. We accept what we have made as what it is. We accept that we have created the world of the ego. And we can decide to let that world go. We can decide to accept our rightful place as co-creators of the universe. We are co-creating with God, my friends. What an incredible idea. These lessons are so very powerful in helping us to see that when we accept that we are one with God, we are mighty beyond measure. We have all the power of the universe at our disposal. Let's grab onto it today. Let's keep reading. Today we practice true humility, abandoning the false pretense by which the ego seeks to prove it arrogant. Only the ego can be arrogant, but truth is humble in acknowledging its mightiness, its changelessness, and its eternal wholeness, all-encompassing God's perfect gift to His beloved Son. We lay aside the arrogance which says that we are sinners, guilty and afraid, ashamed of what we are, and lift our hearts in true humility instead to Him who has created us immaculate, like to Himself, in power and in love. Whew! We are immaculate. We are like God in power and in love. We are mighty beyond measure. We are not sinners. We are not guilty. We are not afraid. There is no need for us to be ashamed of what we are. Let us lift our hearts in true humility to our higher power, to the mighty source of all creation. You may want to take out your journal here and add to your I am statements. We have lots on there by now. I am love. I am light. I am the light of the world. I am powerful beyond measure. I am immaculate. I am like God in power and in love. Let's keep reading. The power of decision is our own, and we accept of Him that which we are and humbly recognize the Son of God. To recognize God's Son implies as well that all self-concepts have been laid aside and recognized as false. Their arrogance has been perceived, and in humility the radiance of God's Son, His gentleness, His perfect sinlessness, His Father's love, His right to heaven, and release from hell are joyously accepted as our own. Let's talk about it. If you are struggling with a poor self-concept, my friend, this lesson is the answer. It says here to lay aside all self-concept and recognize them as false. In humility, our radiance of being God's beautiful beloved child, our gentleness, our perfect sinlessness, and God's love, our right to heaven and release from hell, and we joyously accept the radiance of being God's beautiful beloved child. We accept our perfect sinlessness. We accept our higher power's love. We accept our right to heaven. We accept our release from hell and joyously accept God's gifts as our own. Can you see how the ego and hell are really the same thing? Hell is not a place. Hell is in our mind. Marianne Williamson always says that is the worst place that it can be. We can let those lies go and we can live in heaven all day long, every day. Let's keep reading. Now do we join in glad acknowledgement that lies are false and only truth is true. We think of truth alone as we arise and spend 5 minutes practicing its ways, encouraging our frightened minds with this. The power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. Then will we wait in silence, giving up all self-deceptions as we humbly ask ourselves that He reveal Himself to us. And He who never left will come again to our awareness, grateful to restore His home to God as it was meant to be. In patience, wait for Him throughout the day and hourly invite Him with the words with which the day began, concluding it with the same invitation to yourself. God's voice will answer, for He speaks for you and for your Father. He will substitute the peace of God for all your frantic thoughts, the truth of God for self-deceptions, and God's Son for your illusions of yourself. Let's talk about it. When we wake up first thing in the morning and last thing just before we go to sleep, we arise thinking about the truth of who we are, and we say to ourselves, the power of decision is my own. This day will I accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. If you have any trouble accepting that this is the truth of who you are, I encourage you to journal about it and share your resistance with a trusted friend. We are moving towards fully accepting the beautiful truth of who we are as God's beautiful beloved children. After we say this statement, we simply wait in silence. We ask God that He reveal Himself fully to us and show us the truth of who we are. We continue this practice throughout the day with our hourly practice, practicing often in between, and whenever we are upset for any reason at all, we simply say the idea for today, the power of decision is my own. This day I will accept myself as what my Father's will created me to be. And then we sit for a minute or two and allow the truth of today's lesson to sink deep into our being. Thanks so much for staying right until the end, my friend. If you enjoyed today's video, please share the love, tell someone about these lessons, and encourage them to start at lesson 1 and only do 1 lesson a day. Are you ready for our special treat?
Lolita.
Leash
Come on,
training, baby Lolita.
Come on. Lolita. Come on, baby. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
She's really not very interested.
Come on, Lolita. Come on, baby.
The power of decision is my own. Choose to walk with God all day long, my friends. I love you.